This Atlanta Visions radio interview took place on November 21st, 1991, with the Honorable Yudhe Beit Nun Sophie Yudhe Yahweh Ben Yahweh.
Thank you very much, praise Yahweh, for this opportunity to speak with you in Atlanta, as well as to thank the officials of MCC here in Miami for granting me this opportunity to speak with you today.
Yahweh?
Yes.
What we would like to know is, why are you in prison now? And could you share with us the reasons why the RICO, the 1984 Bail Reform Act, and pretrial detention, how does that affect you and your nation and us as communities at large?
All right. First of all, RICO is a statute that was designed for racketeers for drug dealing. And ironically, I nor any of my followers or any member of our nation is charged with drugs. But we've been charged under this statute because it also allows for pretrial detention. Pretrial detention also comes from the Bail Reform Act that was passed in 1984. And under this Bail Reform Act are two prongs. One is risk of flight. Another reason for holding a person is if he can be adjudged to be a danger to the community, primarily, supposed to be a danger to the witnesses against him. This is the first time in the history of America that a whole religion has been indicted. Our whole nation, the nation of Yahweh, has been indicted. And all who believe or call themselves the children of God are indicted. This is actually typed on the indictment. Now, what else is important is that in holding me, they held me because they said I'm a danger to the community, and they went back after they made their arrest in a 7-state sweep across this country. They said I'm a danger to the community after reviewing some tapes that I taught years ago, where I quoted Jesus Christ in Luke chapter 19, verse 27. And they said that my quoting from that scripture makes me a danger to the community. And there are many other shocking things about this indictment, which I'm going to let you know about in just a moment. First of all, this raid and subsequent arrest were results of the return of an indictment by a U.S. Southern District grand jury, followed by a superseding indictment for 2 attempted murders, 15 murders, 4 counts of arson, and 1 count of extortion under the Federal Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organization known as the RICO statute. Again, I remind you, RICO was originally intended to curtail the conduct of those involved in organized crime, such as the mafia and drug smuggling or distribution. And it requires the naming of an enterprise with which the defendants are associated. But in charging these allegations against me and the others, the government has stretched the requirement under RICO to name an enterprise, in this instance, as the Temple of Love, and they zealously named the nation of Yahweh an entire religion. They did not indict people who are members of a religion. They indicted the entire religion with a following in over 1,300 cities throughout the United States. We have a following in 16 foreign countries, and we're throughout the Caribbean islands. And yet they've named all of these people around the world. And in 1,300 cities of America are named as racketeers in this indictment. Now this infers, and they have made it very clear in their charges when they proffered before the judge, that this infers that tithes and offerings of a church are a racketeering activity. Now, I want you to understand and listen real carefully. Again, tithes and offerings of a church constitutes a racket. Now, what they hope to do is try this case very quietly, without the community or the world or the people at large having any knowledge of it, setting a precedent, what they call a legal precedent. Now, churches out in the Midwest have gotten very excited about this because they're waking up to what this really means. First of all, to say that tithes and offerings of a church is a racket, this means that every preacher in America, in every church, and the leadership of that church is in danger. I mean imminent danger. And don't say it can't happen to you, because it has happened to me. I'm sitting here under a RICO charge of conspiracy to commit murder because one person who claimed to be a follower of mine came around for a couple of years, claimed to be a follower of mine, who in fact is a serial killer, is a serial killer. Now, I want you to listen carefully. This man confessed to 4 murders out of these 15. 9 of them have only his fingerprint. He is absolutely linked, unequivocally, to 9 murders. And yet, because he was around me and because of the work that I'm doing in the black community, for example, I've established a $250 million empire in Miami and across this country. Right there in Atlanta, you have the fabulous Barclay Hotel, where people who follow my principles, Christians, Muslims, Hebrews, Jews, who follow my principles, have come together and bought the Barclay Hotel downtown, a mixture of many different religions. Yet, they have accused me and my followers because I supposedly, through this man's mouth, who said these things to save himself from the electric chair, he said that he heard that someone else saying that they heard that somebody, some of these ones here, confessed to me. And the government says my hearing that confession, which has no proof, no evidence that I heard such, no evidence from anyone who has been accused saying that they have said such, that made me a part of the conspiracy to commit murder. Now, if that's true, then every priest is in danger of going to jail imminently. And every preacher who has ever had someone confess anything to him is imminently ready to go to jail if he doesn't understand that. My suffering is to let you know that. Now, here you have a man who moves to save his life, at the same time help the government to destroy our religion, our organization, because we're setting a role model for black people in this country that you can take the tithes and offerings of your church and benefit the people and the parishioners, because that's what I teach, that it's designed for that. And that's exactly what we did. And because we've had so much success, then the government wants to destroy us. And I think every intelligent, conscious person in this country is aware that all of the political black leaders are under attack, and that all militant-type black leaders are under attack. And it's not just Clarence Thomas trying to be affirmed in the Supreme Court that's under attack, or was under attack. This is true all across this country. Now, I want you to understand why they're doing this. One reason they're doing it is they understand that the leadership of the civil rights movement was preachers, and that the leadership came out of the churches. And they don't want to see any leadership available for the deliverance or the help or the upliftment of any black group or black people in general in this country. So in Revelation chapter 12, verse 9, it makes us aware that old serpent, that old dragon, called the beast, called the devil, etc., has deceived the whole world. Now, a part of the deception in deceiving people is by bringing my case and illegally and unconstitutionally charging me. They're setting a legal precedent. Now, that's what they hope to get away with in this case, is to set a legal precedent. precedent. In other words, it will become law. If they can get a conviction for me in this case, then they will be free as a point of law to come after any church, any leader that they want. You don't have to be a church leader. You can be anyone who's capable of influencing the minds of our people, such as a radio disc jockey or a business leader or anyone from among us who would stand up for our people. They can target them, bring one person, a lie doesn't matter, one person, and accuse any one of you, and you'll be sitting in jail as I am. I've been here now for 13 months without a trial. The Constitution requires that I have a speedy trial in 90 days. The government has put the trial on 4 separate times. Now it's off until 1992. And they have tried to blackmail those that have come in under their rescue. And they've tried to blackmail them to plead with them to go against me. And they refuse to lie, so they're sitting here. If this can happen to Yahweh ben Yahweh, believe me, it can happen to you. Now, again, I want to remind you one more time, the nation of Yahweh, Yahweh, is in 1,300 U.S. cities, 16 African countries, and the Caribbean islands. Now, I want you to understand that there are a few churches that are getting up in arms about this case. They're beginning to wake up to the trick of coming at someone like myself who is not considered a mainstream religion, like Baptist, Methodist, Episcopalian, AME, a mainstream. Yet, we believe in the same King James Version of the Bible as all Christians. Every bit of it, from Genesis all the way through Revelation. We believe in it. We practice what the commandments and the laws and the statutes and the judgments of the Bible teach. We believe it. We practice it. So we really aren't that different. It's just that we believe in it. And we also know and accept that we are the Hebrew Israelites of the Bible, that we are the children of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and that we are the Hebrew Israelites, the original followers of the creator of the Bible, Almighty God. His name is Yahweh, Yahweh. Now, these racist, anti-religious, anti-Christ prosecutors for the U.S. Justice Department are determined to sneak this into law. And if you, the public, sit idly by and in darkness about this case, I remind you again, no preacher, no church, no organization, no leader among us will be safe. I am being hung for you. I am being crucified for you. I am being tortured for you. I'm being abused for you. And I am slain for you. My Father, Yahweh, has raised me up to suffer for you so that you may protect your preacher, so that you may protect your church, so that you can protect your organization or business from this evil design against all religions and any movement among our people to help become free, independent, and self-sufficient. Now, these wicked individuals within the U.S. government, again, have indicted a whole religion. That's unconstitutional. You're able to believe in anything you want in this country by the Constitution. It's unthinkable that an entire nation or whole church of people are being held accountable under one indictment for the alleged act of any one small group of people. I just remember they said there were over 800 people in the Mormon church who had been practicing Satanism, and that they are guilty of rape, murder, ritualistic murder, and all kinds of wicked acts. But there's no move at this moment to arrest the leadership of the Mormon church or to hold the pastors or the preachers or the leadership of that church accountable for those individual acts. Yet there's 800 individuals. It's unthinkable at this moment. But it won't be unthinkable if this case goes through. Again, I've been raised up to suffer for you so that you can come to protect yourselves. We have a whole nation under indictment. Can you imagine all Germans being responsible for the acts of Hitler? Or how would all of white America like to be responsible for the 100 million of us that were taken into captivity? 96 million of us were killed. Only 4 million of us made it to America. If they make such a judgment against our nation, then every white man, woman, and child in America will have to be counted guilty for all the millions, 96 million of us that they have killed. I don't think they want to have to suffer such a judgment. I don't think there's any nation on this planet who is willing to suffer and die as a nation for the acts of a few people within that group. We notice that this is just unconstitutional, unheard of in the history of all civilization. A congressional investigation is being demanded, and you must join this in order to help yourself. Join the fight for a congressional investigation because it does involve you. Now, you asked some more questions, and I'm going to go ahead and give you some more answers here about RICO. Forfeiture of interest acquired through a racketeering activity is the purpose for indicted under RICO. Yet, the original indictment, after years of investigation into alleged criminal acts and financial matters, and the superseding indictment both failed to include a forfeiture count against us. Prosecutors use these failures to impanel yet another illegal grand jury to supposedly investigate the finances of our whole religion, while they continue in reality to question subpoenaed witnesses about the character and reputation of its star witness, serial killer, Robert Rozier. That star witness is a former disciple of the temple who offered law enforcement officials information against the defendant, again I remind you, to escape the death penalty for 4 serious heinous murders that he admitted to committing. And guess what? He has only received 22 years in state prison for the act of admitting killing 4 people. Yet evidence has linked him to 5 additional murders for a total of 9 of the 15 that can be attributed to Rozier. In fact, the only physical evidence found at any murder scene pointed to Rozier. Law enforcement through the courts have not to this minute had to divulge any of Rozier's statements against us regarding these allegations, nor the exact details of their agreement with him for his statement. But the Miami Herald newspaper reportedly had access to this statement as it compiled numerous feature stories to paint a negative picture of us to the general public, as well as to prospective jurors. Now, please note, prior to Rozier's arrest for murder, officials had no evidence to charge me or any other defendant with any crime in the Florida judicial system. Okay? Investigation of one October 1986 incident, for example, that's mentioned in the indictment and not attributed to the 9 people Rozier may have killed, was closed as justifiable homicide or self-defense. That case ironically involved Hezion Israel, who was attacked by a Hispanic man unknown to Hezion or to the nation of Yahweh. And when Hezion grabbed the knife used to attack him, his fingers were almost severed from his hand. And he managed to get the knife from his attacker, and in a frenzy of fear, stabbed his attacker 11 times, killing him. The incident, which happened at a bus stop, was immediately reported by Hezion as he sought medical attention. The investigation showed the attacker had a lengthy history for violence and mental commitment. But it was Rozier, a confessed killer, wanted for fraud in North Carolina, Washington, D.C., and Canada, and known by a California probation officer as the ultimate manipulator, capable of bald-faced, straight-out lies, on whom the government has relied to reopen that investigation and charge it as one of the murders within the indictment. Now imagine that, a case that is closed with no evidence whatsoever except this man making a statement. This case couldn't possibly hold up in state court. That's why it's not tried. If any one of us were guilty of a murder, then it should be tried in state court. That's where it should be tried. Try whoever. But they don't dare do that because they don't have a case. So they charge a gray area like conspiracy. Now, as a result of these allegations in the indictment, I and each of the defendants have been denied bond under the Bail Reform Act of 1984, as I told you a moment ago, or what is called pretrial detention. I'll remind you again. Pretrial detention permits the courts to hold a person if the accused is looked at as one or both of the following by the government. Again, a risk of flight, likely not to appear before the court if released on bond, or a danger to the community, that is, likely to obstruct justice and threaten or harm potential witnesses or jurors. Now, the real danger under pretrial detention is that it obstructs and nullifies state and federal constitutional rights to a speedy trial. In recommending passage of the 1984 Bail Reform Act, which established pretrial detention, members of the Senate Judiciary Committee did not envision detainees being held beyond 90 days before trial, guaranteed by speedy trial. However, in the case against me, the nation of Yahweh, and my followers, it has taken more than these 90 days, as you can see, to get a ruling. We can't even get rulings from the judge on simple motions for investigator assistance, not to mention that it would take more than a year for the trial to begin. Therefore, pretrial detention amounts to a tool that can be used by officials to store away anyone based on what they say an accused might do, not on what they say he did. This is especially true if those officials perceive the accused as a threat to their power base, or as a political, philosophical, economic, or religious enemy of theirs. And in this case, they are seeking 60 years of my life and admit that I've never gotten a traffic ticket in my life. I've never been accused of anything in my life. I've lived a perfect, peaceful, holy life all of these 56 years that I've been on this earth. Yet they are seeking 60 years of my life. That's an effective death penalty when you add that to 56 years. And yet they show they don't care about people being killed. They have a man who admits that he killed 4 people, 9 people, and he'll be on the street next year. In 1992, they're going to turn this man loose. He will have served 4 years for 9 people's lives. How could they be interested in murder? That's not their interest, and you can see that. The interest is to remove me from among the public, remove me from among my people, remove me from among you, lest I teach you how to buy downtowns across the country, how to be economically successful across the country, how to establish your own schools, such as Yahweh University, across the country. I have that success going. Yet, Japanese can come and buy downtowns across the country. The Chinese and all other nations can come and buy up property across this country. So why are they so determined to prevent me from showing you how to be successful, how to move from poverty to riches? I've shown that no matter what the religion of the group in this country, I have brought us all together. Christians, again, Muslims, Hebrews, Jews, and white people. I put us all together, and we're going forward, building for the black community throughout this country, and eventually the world. And for these reasons, I'm being persecuted, and I sit here in jail, and clearly, if they can get away with this, with my case, then they can get away with it against anyone else in this country. So it is about time for a break. I understand 30 minutes have passed, so I will be taking a 60-second break to my knowledge, and I will be returning to you to finish informing you of how dangerous certain wicked individuals can be when they target you to remove you as a threat to them and their power base. And you don't have to take it. It doesn't have to stand if you draw the line now. And the wise among our people are ready to draw the line this minute with my case and say, no, never again. We're not going to let you get away with it. If we have to put new congressmen in office who will change this law, then that's what must be done. But whatever must be done, you have the National Taxpayers for Justice who've entered this case and have stated and been educating people across the country that you don't have to pay taxes to an unconstitutional government. And a government that's not willing to go by its own constitution to protect the right of its citizens, then they don't deserve to continue existing. I will speak with you after this break. Thank you.
Yahweh?
Thank you. Praise you, Yahweh. As some of us have learned in the church, a Hebrew word in the Bible is Hallelujah. It says Hallelujah. Yah is the short form for Yahweh. So I'm saying to all of you, Hallelujah. What can you do to assist? One thing is you can become a part of the 50-50 strategy that has been initiated across this country. The 50-50 strategy is simply first coming into the consciousness that we are 60 million strong in this country, no matter what the census takers say. We are truly 60 million strong adults in this country, and all we need to do is 30 million of us register as Democrats and 30 million of our population register as Republicans. And what that means is a husband one party and a wife another, boyfriend one party, girlfriend another. And it doesn't make any difference which party wins. Clearly we win. And it will be the first time in the history of America, 436 years of our being here, that we will have won directly into the White House. There's a fight on right now for the middle-class black vote, the enlightened, the educated, the upward-bound black. But what they like to do is put you all in one party like the Democratic Party, and then all the whites jump over and vote Republican to make sure you have no power, to make sure that you have no voice into the White House. My father, Yahweh, gave me that plan for you, our people, and regardless of your religion, your economic status, or your fraternity or sorority, or how you feel you are elevated or not in society, this eliminates all petty differences, and we win as a people. I am here to make sure that we shall stand as those dry bones in Ezekiel chapter 37. I will cause you to stand. I will cause your dry bones to come together. I will cause sinews to be placed upon your bones so that they can move. I will cause flesh to be placed upon those sinews, upon your body, and I shall cause breath to enter into you, and you shall stand up on your feet, an exceeding and mighty army in this country for righteousness, for ethical and moral behavior. This is what I teach, and this is what you're going to do. I shall cause it to happen in this land. The next thing that you can do is sign petitions. We have 1 million people that have signed a petition for my release. Now, it appears that the government is paying none of those things any attention, but they will pay it attention as these elections come forward, and they understand that you're serious about the constitutional rights of all citizens being respected. And that's what my being here in prison represents for all of you, is to highlight the reality that unless every individual's constitutional rights are protected, then no individual's rights will be respected under the Constitution. That's what this is about. So those are two things that you can do. The third is you can look in your local black newspaper, and in there from time to time are the names and the telephone numbers and possibly addresses of the Senate Judiciary Committee, and you can call them direct, call their offices, call their legislative aides, and let them know that you're citizens concerned about the constitutional protection afforded to every citizen in this country, and that you're not going to stand idly by and allow the constitutional rights of Yahweh ben Yahweh, the nation of Yahweh, the children of God, or any other group to be violated, because you realize that if it can happen to them, it can also happen to you. So that's the primary thing that you can do. You can also do a letter writing campaign. We have people all over this country from all walks of life are writing letters to the senators and their congressmen to let them know that they are concerned. And you can call this station that you're on, and I'm sure that there's someone who can direct you to the names, the addresses that you would be interested in. Remember, you're doing this for yourself. To get me out is simply to get yourself out, or to keep you from coming in. Well, more important to me is to keep you from coming in. And I'm honored that my father, Yahweh, is using me as the example for your salvation and to highlight and call to your attention the wickedness that individuals in this government are doing to try to destroy all of us as a people. I would also like to continue on with a thought that I was found by the court to be a danger to the community. I have to repeat this on this side of the program because during a religious class, I quoted Jesus in the book of Luke, chapter 19, verse 27. And I'm going to read that to you. And let's see what it says here. But those mine enemies, which would not that I should reign over them, bring hither and slay them before me. Now those are the words of Jesus Christ in your Bible. And I quoted those words and said I would be glad when all the words of Christ are fulfilled. Every single one of them are fulfilled. In fact, I'll be glad when all of the Bible is fulfilled, from Genesis to Revelation. And because I said that, I was deemed a danger to the community. And you have to ask, whose community? What community? So I'm deemed a danger to the community, despite the fact that I have an absolutely clean record, and I'm a veteran of the United States Armed Forces. Through my principles and because of my teaching, African Americans from a diverse social and religious background, lawyers, doctors, medical technicians, bank executives, bus drivers, accountants, day workers, Baptists, Jehovah's Witnesses, Muslims, and Buddhists have set aside their petty differences and come together to build an economic empire worth $250 million in Miami, Florida, and across the country. Despite the fact I'm considered a danger, despite the fact that I have shown an ordinarily disenfranchised group of Americans how to earn and produce political clout through the exercise of unified votes. I am deemed a danger to the community, despite the fact that I have known about the investigation since Rozier's Corporation in 1987 and have made no attempts to hide myself. I'm considered a danger to the community, despite the fact that I have not personally, nor through others, even my attorney, attempted to harass, harm, or threaten any government witness, and no evidence has been shown by the government to the contrary. I am deemed a danger to the community, despite the fact that I have been declared indigent by the court after prosecutors openly conceded that I have no assets, I have no financial holdings, and while their original attempts were to paint me as a materialist amassing wealth on a religious pretense, when I have taken an oath of poverty over 12 years ago, they knew that. They admit that. And admit that I have no money, I take no salary. In the 12 years in the establishment of the nation of Yahweh, I do not take a salary or any money. I'm considered a danger to the community, despite the fact that the only evidence put on by the government at the January 22nd, 1991 bond hearing was the hearsay statement of Rozier through investigative police officers. He wasn't even there. That means no witnesses against me. And the proffer of government prosecutors. If you don't know what proffer means, it means their freedom to stand up and lie. And after they lie and hold you for years in prison, when you go to court, you can't hold them responsible for their lies. They are free to lie against me and any other citizen. That includes you, just for the purpose of holding you. And when it's a conspiracy between them and elements of the government, including judges, federal judges, then you're just in prison. And that's where I sit at the moment, 13 months now. Only a few other defendants have had bond hearings, and about 5 of the remaining 16. But each was denied bond as dangerous to the community, with or without a hearing, because they had chosen to exercise their First Amendment right to worship Yahweh as God, and to accept Yahweh Beit Nun Sofit Yahweh as the Son of God and their spiritual leader. Now, here's something that should shock you. One of these 16 people is a sister by the name of Judith Israel. Now, poor Sister Judith has been sitting in prison for 13 months because Rozier said he gave him a cigarette lighter. She bought a cigarette lighter and gave him that he used. He said he used to set a house on fire. She's sitting in prison for 13 months because he said she brought a blackboard into a class where he was taught how to do a firebombing of this same house. Can you imagine that? You have people who commit murder are out on bond. People who commit heinous crimes are out on bond. There's absolutely no evidence. There are no receipts, no evidence of any kind that would link this sister to anything. She's not even accused of murder or hurting anybody or anything, and yet she's denied bond. When it comes up to Atlanta's 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, they don't even read our bond appeals. They don't read them at all. Not one case has been read by the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals in Atlanta, Georgia. They simply look at the case number, understand that it's connected to Yahweh, and send it back without opening it. Now, is that constitutional? You think about it. This raises several assumptions made by the government, prosecutors, and the ruling judge. One, that the worship of Yahweh, and that the nation of Yahweh are not legitimate. This raises the government is saying, the prosecutors are saying, that the public cannot see their conscious efforts to destroy a black economic base. The prosecutors and the government, the ruling judge, are saying that the defendants are pawns in a conspiracy to commit racketeering acts and will do whatever a superior suggests. Now, if that were the case, then Ali North would be in prison. If that were true, Pondexter would be in prison. If that were true, then Schwarzkopf and General Colin Powell would be hanged as war criminals for having murdered over 400,000 men, women, and children in Iraq. The same would be true for them for killing over 10,000 people in Panama to go in and get one man called Noriega. And if that were true, then these people would be hung for war crimes for killing off a whole nation of Indians in America. If this were true, I remind you again, 96 million of our people have been killed in the slave trade, and we're still being killed and murdered and beaten all across this country today. So we're wondering now, why wasn't Police Chief Gates held responsible directly for his police officers for beating Mr. King? They've just proven and have videotapes of another beating in Houston, Texas, where they beat a Hispanic man, broke his bones up real bad in an elevator. And the elevator camera caught the pictures, and they have it published across the country today. I saw it myself. Why aren't those officers held responsible for the superiors held responsible? No, we know what the game is, and you're learning what the game is. This raises several assumptions made by the government prosecutors and ruling judge that each of the defendants, despite the nature of the charges, there is memorably clean record, and the background of their accuser must be guilty. There is no such thing in America as you're innocent until proven guilty. That is an illusion, my people. You better wake up that in this case, they're taking away all innocence until proven guilty. All it takes is for them to accuse you, and you are assumed guilty. It's a terrible thing when you have a mindset that because somebody is arrested, they must have done it, or they must have done something, or they must be guilty, or else they would not have been arrested. Well, you'll have a chance to find out unless you stand up in this case. The prosecutors and the ruling judge in this case have assumed that no one will notice that they have ignored the remaining standards in the United States, that one is innocent until proven guilty by competent, relevant evidence beyond a reasonable doubt. Denial of bail cannot be justified by assumption, and that's in a case by Stackey versus Oil. Trial in the case against me and the others, again, was originally set in May 91, then it was reset to September 11th, in July, then the judge again, sui sponte, reset the trial date to January 2nd, 1992. They were supposed to give us all the evidence they had against us 45 days before January 2nd. We're now into about 30-some days left, and they haven't given us any evidence. You know why? They don't have any. That's why. And they don't intend to go on with this case. Not and give us no evidence. They don't have any. The judge also on his own has ruled that this last reset does not violate our right to a speedy trial, acknowledging the point that we are being held under pretrial detention. Yet, on October 7th, 1991, or excuse me, this is now what, November the 21st, we're sitting here now 13 months. And when you add up the fact that we are legally presumed innocent, sitting in prison, and even if the trial were to begin January 2nd, 92, and it will not, then it's anticipated that they will take 4 months to even present their material. And you add that plus 3 or 4 months to defend ourselves, we're talking about 2 years in prison as innocent people. So 2 years as a minimum behind bars as unconvicted guests of our government, and we're treated worse than convicted criminals. We actually are treated worse than convicted criminals. Our meals, we can't go back and get seconds. Convicted criminals can go back and get as much of all the food that they want. They'll give us a very limited vegetable array, while they have 9 fresh vegetables on the line for convicted criminals. We may get some sticks of carrot and sticks of celery, while the convicted criminals have 9 fresh vegetables on the salad bar line. We're not allowed to even go to the salad bar line. Also, convicted criminals have 24-hour telephone. I and my followers are only allowed 15 minutes in 24 hours. That's all. I get 15 minutes to use the telephone to call my lawyer or call my loved one or anybody. It doesn't make any difference. 15 minutes is all that we're allowed. Convicts, convicted criminals here have 14 visits a month. We have 3. They can see some people every other day. We have 3 visits a month. Tell me about what the rewards are in this country. The convicted criminals have access to unlimited food machines inside their dorm. It's against prison rules. We'll be put in the hole if we have food like that in our dorm. We're not allowed to even have it. And the list goes on and on. Some of the convicted criminals get to go home on the weekend, get furloughed out. They take them out the door, like out the back door. And while we're not allowed to visit our family or wives or children in that manner. So now you examine this against the fact that our accuser, Rosier, pled guilty in 1988 and is eligible for release in 1992 after serving only 4 years, again, while the government is seeking 60 years of my life. Now this is the United States versus Yahweh, God Almighty, and Yahweh ben Yahweh et al., written on the indictment. Can you imagine that? This government says the United States versus Yahweh, God, with its religious persecution and rancor, political attacks because of economic development and denial of bail. All of this demonstrates the prophetic nature of former FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover's memorandum of the late 1960s, which outlined how the media would aid the government to kill, destroy the character and credibility of leaders in the African American community, especially Messianic leaders. So this case, my case, is exemplary of how the application of double standards has caused the treatment of detainees and the accused in our justice system to fall below the levels to which the United States has been so quick to label as police state measures in other nations. Now you think about this double standard. We have several judges who were arrested 2 months ago here in Miami, Florida, along with several lawyers for corruption. One of the judges, Judge Schinberg, is indicted under the same RICO statute, all of them are, and he is indicted exactly as I am, conspiracy to commit murder, extortion, etc. My exact indictment, he's indicted like that. Guess what? Because he's a judge, is that why? He was only in custody 90 minutes. Never put handcuffs on him, and he's out on bond. He's out on bond with his family and never put up a dime in cash, just signed the paper. My identical charge, and yet I'm here 13 months. How can that be justified in the eyes of the public? Also, there was another man here by the name of San Pedro, charged identically to my charges. I don't mean all close or similar. I said identical. This man is out on bond, and most of his charges are being dropped systematically while I continue to sit here. I've met him personally, sitting here, and he thinks it's a criminal shame that I'm here like this, and that the people need to be made aware, and I'm happy for every one of you that's listening to this program now. You can understand, and you need to understand, that this case should warn the American public to wake up to the methods which our constitutional rights are being violated by the criminal justice system, and in which the Bill of Rights can be avoided through legislation without amending the Constitution. So you must understand, if it can happen to Yahweh ben Yahweh, if it can happen to the nation of Yahweh, it can happen to you and to your religion. I want to also state something else you can do in the final closing minutes. You can join the People for Truth. I don't mean you become a member. You just join along with the People for Truth, the National Taxpayers for Justice. Let's see, there's another group, the National Voters League. Several organizations have come together and are demanding a congressional investigation in this case. And we're happy to report to you that Congressman Donnelly out of California, sitting on the Judicial Committee, is looking into it, but they need to hear from you. Again, I want you to understand, several Dade County circuit judges and attorneys have been under investigation by U.S. attorneys, and they've been indicted under this RICO statute. So, again, acting U.S. Attorney Dexter Layton stated that corruption in the judiciary destroys public confidence in the system of justice. Now, isn't that a danger to our community? Isn't applying the laws of the land by a double standard considered corruption within our justice system? These indicted judges condemned by Layton were yet provided the following rights, while I and my followers have been denied the same rights. One, the 4 indicted judges were informed when their indictments would be handed down. They were allowed to surrender to U.S. Marshals without being seen handcuffed on television. In my case, we were arrested and paraded in handcuffs. I was arrested and paraded in handcuffs on national television, even though I cooperated with the grand jury investigation and I had requested to surrender myself and my followers should an indictment ever be handed down. Yet I was denied that. These indicted judges were in custody 90 minutes. I remind you again, I have been held by the word of Assistant U.S. Attorney Scruggs and the orders of Chief Judge Norman Rutger for over 13 months. Another instance, after posting a $500,000 bond, each indicted judge, was released to go home without any further conditions. And yet, I have been denied bond, although my attorneys have offered numerous alternatives that could have been made conditions of my bond. So why is it that I'm being held without bond? Could it be that I am a political prisoner, suffering religious persecution at the hands of unjust government officials? We can clearly see that the rights granted by the Constitution are not meant for all citizens. But we have an obligation, my people, to claim the Constitution and make it a reality for our people too. We, the so-called blacks of America, we must claim it, or they're going to do away with us as a people. We demand that our servants, who are the U.S. Congress and Senate, look into these acts of true conspiracy in this manner. Who are the true conspirators? Acting U.S. Attorney Dexter Layton and Assistant U.S. Attorney Scruggs and Chief Judge Norman Rutger are all applying double standards in this case against me and the nation of Yahweh. Again, it has become extremely evident. If it can happen to me, it can happen to you and your religion. So again, why is the U.S. government attacking me? Why does the government want to put an end to my good work? What if I am the Christ promised to return? If I'm not, it doesn't make any difference. But what if I am? What if I'm the one chosen to come back and redeem you from poverty and show you the abundant life? What if I am the one who is here to lead the blind by a way that they have known not? What if I am the one to show you a great light? What if I am the one to restore you to the royal priesthood that Almighty God, Yahweh, chose you to be? A holy nation, a peculiar nation, a righteous people. The only thing that's going to save you is a perfect moral message from God, because the message from this world has destroyed our children.
Well, thank you. The Honorable Yahweh ben Yahweh